Yes, I have. Thank you, Soren, so much.
Yeah.
Gosh, like so many people, I'm so completely shocked to be picked. The first thing that's coming to my head, Soren, is I hope Taj is okay, because we haven't heard about an update on him for a while.
Good, thank you.
So I really hope he's doing well. Right.
And
Just
I know you're calling from Scotland, right? You're still in Scotland?
Sorry?
Are you still in Scotland?
I am, yes, I'm in Scotland, Soren. So just going to take a moment to kind of calm my heart down a little bit, because I can't quite believe I'm getting to ask my question. It's taken me probably about 10 weeks to feel as though I could ask what I wanted to ask, and also feel that by sharing it, I'm not in some way kind of unburdening it inappropriately on people. And I think a lot of what's been happening in the last few weeks with George has kind of given me maybe the courage maybe to raise it, and also that perhaps it's something that in some way other people might also relate to. You're talking about George Floyd? Yes, yes, I am. So in my life, I've had quite a lot of trauma, kind of trauma with a small t, in relation to various things growing up as kind of like a daughter of an immigrant parents, and also kind of racism, that kind of thing, but also trauma with a big T as well. So, sorry. Take your kind of 20 years ago, yes, 21 years ago now. Yeah, thank you. So now my parents were both murdered. And yeah, I mean, it was incredibly difficult to deal with. And it's something that I'm still dealing with. It was effectively a con artist, I guess, who had done it before. Took me a long time to find a way through PTSD, etc. with it. Then was involved in a court case involving a male teacher in the days that are kind of very sort of pre-Savile, if that makes sense. So in the UK, pre-Jimmy Savile, and the view of the judge in the court case was that she was about 10 at the time, was that, and there were 2 or 3 girls involved, is that young girls lie, basically, children lie. So that's left her with, all of us with a lot of trauma, and her with a lot of mental and physical health difficulties, I guess. And then just kind of coming into lockdown as well, like kind of like unbelievably, really, just a few weeks before lockdown, 2 of my first cousins were murdered as well. My family don't come from, you know, a difficult area, either politically or in terms of deprivation or anything like that. My question really, I've had PTSD in the past and I've had help with that, and that's been great. I came to mindfulness probably about 4 years ago now through a psychologist, and Jon, she recommended one of your books, and I picked it up and very slowly and cautiously read the book, having heard about mindfulness, and eventually kind of plucked up the courage to kind of give it a go. And since then I've been using mindfulness. I have been on, rather than an MSBR course, it was a mindfulness-based course that Mark Williams propagated through the NHS. Yeah, mindfulness-based cognitive therapy. Yeah, that's it. So I got involved in that as well, and I've carried on my practice. My question really to you is if you have any advice or guidance on how, so I've mentioned the really difficult things in my life. I've also had some completely amazing things that have happened as well. I have the most wonderful husband. I have 2 fantastic children that I love very much. I have wonderful people that I have met along the way. I've traveled. I live in a fantastic country. The question is really about finding the equanimity through practice and and through other things to be able to hold the really, really difficult things together with the really beautiful things that happen as well, and how to somehow find the peace to be able to hold all of that. So I can look at individual things that have happened to me and kind of accept them. But sometimes accepting the whole of my journey and the whole of my story is just so challenging. And I had a feeling that Soren was going to ask me to speak today, because today is my dad's birthday. And I've kind of had this feeling all day of a kind of a slight sense of anxiety and all of these things coming very much to the front, especially, as I said, with the political things that have been happening that have allowed me in a way to talk about things that have happened to me that I feel in a way in the past maybe I shouldn't have spoken about, because it's putting the burden on other people. So I don't know, I feel like I've rambled there, Jon, and I don't know if it makes any sense at all.
Well, you haven't rambled at all. And I understand your kind of diffidence in like even bringing this up, because for one, it's so horrible. For two, it's so personal. And, you know, and you're sensitive enough to the whole to sort of be, you know, concerned that you don't want this to simply be a focus on you. But nevertheless, I sense 100% that the question is coming from a place of, you know, profound caring, and not just sort of personal in a small way, but deeply, profoundly personal in the sense that, yeah, this has all happened, and the beauty is there and the horror all together. And as I understand it, your question is how to come to terms with it in some way, to come to peace with it. And that actually, my definition of healing is not curing, but coming to terms with things as they are. And when it's big T trauma, as you call it, and it certainly is, it's a huge challenge. And there's no facile something that I could say, which will then sort of immediately help you find the kind of wisdom in equanimity, so to speak, that would allow it to all be as it is, and yet not eroding of a certain kind of something in your experience as your life continues to unfold. All I can say is, in some sense, your instincts are correct, that, you know, if anything is capable of holding the full catastrophe, if you will, of the human condition, the way it has emerged in your family's life, it's mindfulness, it's heartfulness. But there are different ways of understanding mindfulness and heartfulness. And now there are many people who are actually emphasizing trauma-sensitive mindfulness, that whether it's MBCT or MBSR, that the person who is actually guiding the meditations and teaching the courses needs to have a kind of profound background or understanding and sort of openness to recognizing trauma. And that's developed into a field called trauma-sensitive mindfulness. There's a book by a fellow named David Treleaven, Treleaven, which I believe the title is Trauma-Sensitive Mindfulness. I can pull it off my bookshelf and show it at some other time. But it sounds like by virtue of your ability to ask the question and to offer the background to it in this kind of public forum, that you've got everything you need already to take everything that you've done in the domain of healing so far, to whatever level it wants to find its way to, like water seeking its natural level, to heal in the way that you described. There's a certain kind of equanimity around the whole of it without denying any of it. And I just want to offer, you know, my condolences. There's no word for the kind of experiences that you have and your family have gone through. And to really bow to you for your instincts, your healthy, incredibly healthy instincts for the possibility of coming to terms with what nobody should ever, ever, ever have to experience in ways that don't, to avoid, you know, sort of the potential that it destroy your life while you still have it to live. And the beauty of your life while you still have it to live. That would be, you know, compounding tragedy upon tragedy. And so I love your instincts. And I'm very, very happy, Yasmin, that you got to voice this question. I can also tell you that although big T trauma always has its particulars, so that, you know, the uniqueness of every case is kind of very, very clear. With this many thousand people on the call, what you are articulating is resonating with a lot of other people at this moment, and will, as more and more people come to this, not in real time. Because this, unfortunately, is one aspect of the human condition, the level of suffering that's perpetrated on the levels of violence and disregard for people's humanity that's perpetrated on others, on, you know, both in war and in peace, you know, under the conditions of civil society and in horrific, you know, sort of other times, that it is colossal, and that kind of healing is absolutely essential going forward, because the only person that's really going to suffer from your not, in some sense, engaging in the healing process forever, as long as you have, is you and your family and your friends and everybody else who wants something for you that looks like liberation from suffering. So, wow. Thank you for articulating that. And I just want to extend my, you know, sort of my enthusiastic best wishes for keeping up the practice in a way that really feels right to you, pulling on all the resources that you can find, including the ones that I've suggested now and will continue to suggest, to find your own way through to this. And of course, it's not just for you, because your children will benefit, your husband will benefit, your family will benefit. And for that matter, all the people that you don't even know who are connecting in one way or another through our being together, the benefit itself is boundless. Do you want to respond to what I said? And
yeah, I just want to, a couple of things, I suppose. The first one is I don't know if it was a couple of weeks ago now, like you said, time sort of merges into one. You asked us when we had our first kind of waking up. For me, it was when I was traveling to where my parents were killed, and I was in an airport, and I was with my brother and my husband, and everything was just so incredibly overwhelming that I just didn't know what to do with myself. And I looked out the window, I think it was at Abu Dhabi airport actually, And I saw a plane coming into land, and I saw the wheels coming in onto the tarmac and the heat shimmering. And in that moment, there was just something I found which just made me think, you are going to get through this somehow or another. It was just a really profound sense of seeing what was in front of my very eyes at that moment in time. And like the lady yesterday, I think I probably then went back to sleep for about 15 years before I kind of really opened up that door to mindfulness. And secondly, I just want to say how incredibly, sorry, I'm trying not to get emotional. I am a really emotional person.
Why are you trying not to get emotional?
Because I don't want to cry in front of thousands of people and not be articulate. I just want to
what?
say,
If that happened, it would be 100% okay. I just want you to know that I'm speaking now for these thousands of people, but mostly for myself.
Thank you. I just want to say how incredibly healing it is for me to hear you. And actually, I have asked my question in a small group before, to a certain extent, to hear people saying that in some way it doesn't hurt them for me to express what I've been through, that in some way possibly it could benefit and help other people. To hear that I have gone through this, and maybe to see me and to know that I am getting through it. And I think also your acknowledgement of the fact that I guess I've always known inside me, but maybe even with all the psychologists that I've seen and people that I've seen, that kind of acceptance that that healing is going to go on for as long as I have left. Because it doesn't, you know, it's been nearly 21 years now since I lost my mum and dad, and it doesn't just get healed.
No.
It carries on, and that's kind of a strange beauty in itself, again, if that makes any sense. So thank you for
but don't go any further right now. The strange beauty in itself, let's linger with that one for a moment, because that's also really profound, and it's your experience. It's not coming out of thinking. And so it's trustworthy. It's showing you something or opening you up to something. And so I just don't want you to skip over it too quickly.
May I say one more thing?
Of course.
One of the things that I have really struggled with, in a way, I have never really had a sense of anger and fury. I've had irritation over the years, but I haven't had fury. But one of the things I've never really been able to approach in any way up till now, or even now maybe, is the whole concept of forgiveness of what this person did to my mum and dad, and what's happened to other people that are really close to me. And I tried, as a result of a meditation that I think you must have done in the early weeks, because I think I stumbled across your very first YouTube meditation on the very first day somehow, where you talked a little about it, and you talked about metta. And I was terrified, but for the first time the next day, I did actually open myself up to it a tiny, tiny bit, and a little crack opened. And I found it really hard, and I found it really hard the next day. But over the weeks that came afterwards, I found a little kind of release in a way. Not that I could bring myself to say out loud that there's forgiveness, because if I'm really honest, I don't know if there is. But I feel as though I've opened a little crack in that door. And maybe I will go on and explore that soon, and maybe I won't. But just a huge thank you for having allowed me to open that door a tiny, tiny bit. So thank you again for that.
Well, Yasmin, you're really showing us the bound, you know, I've used these words quite often, but the boundless spaciousness of your own heart. And again, it's trustworthy, but it's not something you do. It's just who you are. There's no timetable. There's no outcome. There's no special something that you have to arrive at. But it's, and I am not a big fan of, like, you know, the kinds of things that push forgiveness in any way, shape, or form. But it really is almost axiomatic that you're the one that's carrying the hurt and the resentment. So you're the one that's suffering from all of the completely understandable emotions. So forgiveness is, in some sense, never really forgiving the other person, but in some sense, unburdening yourself from the residue, the toxic residue of what was done that you experienced as a total assault, wounding, destruction, and showing that there's so much more to your heart that would even occur to you. And not occur to your thinking mind, but just spontaneously, if I'm understanding you, arose as a kind of experiment, but not to get too far into. And that's so beautiful that you are modulating and self-regulating around that kind of thing, but not shutting down completely, because again, the you that is shut down is the only one that's going to suffer. So this is one of the ironies of the kinds of violence that we experience and how we then come to terms with it, how we then live our lives, continue to move through our lives after having experienced the unthinkable and really the unforgivable violence of ignorance, of greed, of hatred, of whatever the root causes are that cause another human being to create that much havoc in the world that has ongoing momentum. And so just again, deepest of bows to you for your intuition around your own healing and your own taking care of what's most important for not losing your own integrity in the flames of completely understandable anger, hatred, whatever those emotions might be that arose in the past or sometimes arise right now. I'm not going to try to guess what they would be, but the toxicity, of course, is only in the person that has them, even though it's totally justifiable, understandable. So just again, the deepest of bows. And also, if you allow me to kind of generalize from the fact that you were sort of randomly chosen because you put up that blue hand. The process may be somewhat random, although what goes on in Soren's mind, none of us will ever know. So we don't know how he does that. It's part of the mystery. But the fact of the matter is that it really doesn't matter, because we're all, in some sense, waves on the same ocean. And when we rise up, and for a short period called a lifetime, but we're all coming out of the same humanity, like the body of the water that's rising up and then saying, hi Yasmin, hi Susan, hi Kathy, hi Linda, hi Soren, and then soon gone. What we do with the wave that we are is huge. And how we connect with our true nature that we share completely equally part of the curriculum. And there's no one right way to do it. So your voice is, in some sense, part of the poetry of this love affair. And it's ongoing. There's no denouement, final denouement. It's all process unfolding while the wave continues to be up above the water that we all go back down into. And why we have children and parents and, you know, sort of progenitors of the life that's going on in our particular bodies and incarnations, so to speak. So I'm marveling. I find myself marveling that you found this practice and you intuited it a long time ago. The question I actually asked wasn't what your first experience of awakening was. That wasn't actually what I meant, but maybe that is what I meant. But I think it was, what was the first time that you actually recognized the importance of being present, of actually practicing it, of exercising that muscle? But they're all, again, like all these questions, different doors into the same room. And whenever it was, that moment of wakefulness, that moment of realizing I could align myself with something that would navigate the twists and turns in Homer's language, the twists and turns of fate, of the unfolding. And that it's all in the navigating. Thank you. Unmute yourself.
Let's see. I believe.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I want you to unmute yourself so that if you want to say anything else.
Yasmin, do you have anything else?
Make sure that we're complete on this for now.
No, thank you so much, Jon. I'll treasure the fact that we've had this conversation, and I'm sure I'll watch it many, many times over, and hopefully I'll get a chance to save the chat as well. I'm so deeply grateful, along with everybody else, for everything that Soren and Jon Basho and everyone has created in this community, and for this whole community being here. And thank you so much for speaking to me.
Well, thank you. Right back at you, as the young people say.